So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining today's live. Okay, and welcome to the first episode of Can We Talk for 2026. We wanted to start Can We Talk as a space to have honest conversations, whether you're starting out on your journey, in the middle of treatments, taking a pause, or not sure what to do next. We're basically hoping that this series becomes a place that you can get some clarity and get some answers. We created this series basically to talk to doctors, nurses, professionals like therapists, counselors, coaches, as well as patients, not to give guarantees or perfect answers and solutions, but to basically talk about a conversation that's often not talked about enough. All right, today's session is called IVF, the second time round. For many women trying IVF again, second time round can sometimes be a simple process, or sometimes it can be a process that is a bit more difficult than the first time round. So I'm very happy that we are going to be joined by Dr. Chua from Alpha IVF Fertility Center Singapore, as well as Cheryl, his patient, who has been so kind to come on and share her journey as well. So if you're watching this and you're unsure what to do next, we hope that today might bring you some clarity. So with that, let's start today's conversation, and let me invite Dr. Chua and Cheryl to join us in today's talk. Okay, just give me a moment. And if you have questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask, and we can kind of address them as we go. All right, so let's just wait for them to join in, and then we can start today's chat. Hi, Dr. Chua.
Hi, Kim.
Hi, okay.
Nice to see you. Yeah.
Let me just bring Cheryl on board, and we can start. Yes, Cheryl is here. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Dr.
Hi,
Chua.
Cheryl. Hey.
Thank you, both of you. Cheryl has a very busy day, so
Yeah.
as a mom of one, it's really not easy. So thank you so much for taking the time out to join us today, Cheryl. Okay, so before we start, maybe let's get a quick introduction from the both of you. Dr. Chua, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Oh, thanks, Kim, for inviting, for having us. I'm Dr. Chua. I'm an obstetrician, gynecologist, and fertility specialist. I used to work in the KK Hospital, Department of IVF and Reproductive Medicine, and I'm now with Alpha IVF Center in private practice. And an interesting fact is, I have 3 kids, and they were all conceived through IVF.
Yes, Dr. Chua is the only doctor that I know that actually conceived his kids through IVF as well. And I always think that that's something that makes him, a bit more personable, because he understands the journey a bit more. So thank you for sharing that with us. Cheryl will also get a quick introduction from you, and, for you to just share a little bit about your journey and then where you are kind of at the moment.
Yeah, I'm Cheryl. I started my fertility journey actually very long time ago, like 10 over years ago, when I diagnosed with PCOS. So I was in early 20s and I didn't bother about it because it doesn't hurt me either. I still can do what I want. So, but it actually become a concern when I get married, and then I tried for 6 months and I couldn't get a child. I went to a GP and then she referred me to KKH. Yeah. So from there, because my menses is always irregular, and the point that I seek help was that particular month I came twice. My menses came twice. So I met Dr. Chua when I was assigned to him as part of my team doctors. So we started our fertility journey there. It took quite a while, and then I managed to conceive my child with the first try in a way, the second embryo, but he's the first transfer. So after that, I wanted to have another child to accompany him because I really appreciate to have my siblings with me. So I want him to have the same, the
same kind of family
feelings, yes, that he will grow up with. I don't want him to be growing up alone. So I was desperately looking for Emmanuel siblings. So that's how I came to try again. Of course, his batchmate, I have 3 more that time. So I finished up his batchmate. Yeah, then after that, took a break and then try again.
Yeah. So basically, Cheryl's journey is that she succeeded at KKH with Dr. Chua. So that's how she met Dr. Chua in the first place. And then after that, she wanted to try for siblings for her little son, who is now, I think he's two and a half.
3 next week.
Oh, wow. 3 next week. Wow, how time flies. So he's 3 soon. And then she wanted siblings. And then basically the journey continued. And then we will ask you some questions about your journey from there, and we'll let you talk about that. But okay, Dr. Chua, a question for you to start off with. As a doctor, do you feel that patients come to you feeling emotionally different the second time round compared to the first after having a success?
Definitely, the second and the first time is so different.
Mm-hmm.
So even for me, I'm working in this line. So, but for myself, when I had to, the tables are turned and I was a patient, I also
Yeah.
felt a lot of worry and anxiety. I can still remember when I first had to submit my sperm sample. Then I really wondered if I was a cause and I had low sperm count. Yeah, so the IVF is like the first time you have so many uncertainties, whether you have enough eggs, whether they will fertilize, whether they will form embryos, and whether you get pregnant. So thankfully things worked out fine for me. And the second time round, with having already have one child, so you'll be much more relaxed. And I definitely was very relaxed the second time. Yeah.
Because I think it's a different type of anxiety when you're trying for your first and then when you're trying for the second, obviously. Do you have a lot of couples that come to you assuming that, oh, I finally succeeded my first round. The second round is just going to be a breeze. I'm not going to have any problems. I'm going to get pregnant straight away on my second round.
Yeah, so they may not really say it, but they feel it. You feel it from them that everything will be fine. Actually, they are not wrong. A lot of them are since they already have a child, they have proven fertility, and their body has been proven to be able to carry a pregnancy to full term. So most of them do succeed, but it's still not 100%. Not everyone is successful.
And then that brings me to Cheryl, So Cheryl, when you went into your second round of journey, after having your son, how long did you wait before trying again? Sorry, Yomi.
Trying as in IVF.
Yeah, so that means you did your first round IVF and you had your son. Then how long after that did you decide, okay, I'm gonna try for a sibling?
I wanted like immediately, but
Oh,
doctor,
wow.
he said 18 months. Then I bargained with him until 12 months.
So wow. So 12 months later, you decided to try again.
Yes, we tried again. Yeah, 12 months later, he delivered.
And did you think that the second time round was going to be easier?
Initially, I thought it was because IVF was like a golden ticket for me. Like everyone thought, but it didn't go so well because I assume it's a pregnancy
So basically,
loss.
Cheryl actually went through a miscarriage. So you did successfully get pregnant the second time around, but unfortunately,
No. I did test the pregnancy test all the way. It was all the way double line until after the incident.
Was this an IVF transfer?
Yes, it's a frozen.
Okay.
The
I
third
see.
row. Yeah.
I see. And then basically it succeeded, but unfortunately in the
It's
end,
a beta. I mean, it's all my own testing. So
understand.
to me, I think as long as it's transfer, it's a pregnancy until I declare it's not.
Understand. I mean, definitely, I think, as when we go through fertility treatments, a lot of things actually makes us, a bit more, anal in that certain way that, if we believe that we are pregnant, and, when we see 2 lines on a pregnancy test kit, we always assume that means I am pregnant, and that brings a lot of joy, obviously. And so to lose that pregnancy was obviously very hard. So, after that loss, did you decide to do it? Because you still had embryos after that, right?
Yes, I have 2. So I finished up that 2, but it was sadly ended up as a Brighton ovum, I think.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay.
But that was the point when Dr. Chua left KK already.
Yes. So, and that's when, as you said, Dr. Chua decided to leave KKH and join Alpha. So, but that actually gives us an idea of things that sometimes the second time round or even the third time round might not be as simple as we think. Dr. Chua, when a patient returns to IVF, after a successful round, are there any medical or, factors or information that you would usually look at, or would you just say that, okay, you succeeded the first round with this, we will try it, same thing again?
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things is that the quality of the remaining embryos. If the quality and the grading is similar,
Yeah.
then they are more likely to succeed. But sometimes you can be really the first one was a very good grade, the subsequent ones were of a lower grade. So that's one of the most important things to check.
Yep.
Because every time we transfer, usually we put the best one in first. Then the second one will be the second best and vice versa. So that's why it may not always be so successful. And sometimes I feel that for those with no more remaining embryos and those they have to come back and do a second egg retrieval. And the count and the quality of the egg can really drop drastically the second time, especially in those who are mid or late 30s. Okay, so I think it's a combination of aging, natural aging, as well as the pregnancy really taking a toll on the body. And it's really, you can really see a drop that is much more than a natural drop in AMH.
Yeah.
So that's why I always,
sorry.
yeah, so I always tell them if they want a second child to come back earlier and not to wait too long, especially those in their mid to late 30s.
Yeah. So that was the next question I was going to ask you, actually. Do you see more couples leaving a gap? I mean, what is the average gap that you see couples leaving? You know, because obviously when they finally succeed with their first child, that first child can be quite overwhelming, you know, suddenly having a baby to look after. And being a first-time parent, it's always a lot more overwhelming in that sense. Do you see, what's an average gap that you see for people who decide to have a second child?
It depends on their stage of life.
Okay.
There are those who are a bit older and they know that their time is running out. Then they will be, sometimes they will be in a rush to get started again. Sometimes they may not even wait for 1 year. They may want to come back and try after 9 months, for example. While those who have already one kid, maybe in their early 30s, and they may or may not want a second one, so they may come back a bit later, about 2 or 3 years time.
Understand.
Yeah, so it depends.
It also depends on whether they still have embryos or not, right? Do you see that people who have embryos are usually a bit more adventurous, or they leave it a bit longer, seeing that I've already got embryos there, I don't have to rush as much?
Yeah, definitely, because they have embryos frozen, they think that anytime they come back, even if they're later, it doesn't matter so much that their egg count has dropped, because the eggs are sort of already frozen, and that is true. But you also have to really look at the quality of the egg, of the embryos that are frozen.
So let's say there's a couple who has, let's say, you know, they have very good, still they transferred a good embryo and they still have a good embryo left. And then they're saying that, you know, I'm going to wait till my mid 40s, you know, before I transfer next one. Would you still say to them, okay, I mean, I think you're good to go, or what would you kind of advise them in that sense?
I think there are two problems. One is that even though the embryo is good, the implantation potential is good, and the chance of it being a healthy pregnancy is better, because when the woman is younger, the chance of things like Down syndrome is much lower. But when the maternal body herself ages, there's a higher risk, and they get pregnant, there's a higher risk of medical problems, diabetes, high blood pressure. Some women get kidney problems, etc. So it's maybe not so good to leave it so late. Okay. The other thing is a societal issue, and I feel it myself, because I have kids when I'm at a later age, when I'm 40s. So when my kids when my son is going to the army, I'm going to be in my 60s. So it's a problem now that's happening in society.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. You know, I have a very big age gap with my kids, and you know, my husband was just telling me the other day, you know, when the daughter is like in her teens, he's gonna be in his 60s, and you don't realize how it hits you until later on. But it is true. Cheryl, you know, I just want to come back to you. I know it's a bit emotional and everything, but you know, when you failed, when things didn't go as expected at KKH and everything, what was the emotions that you were feeling at that point in time?
For both of them, I mean, like,
yeah. So by basically knowing that, you know, I don't have any more embryos, and what was the train of thought, or what were you thinking at that point in time?
It was devastating, definitely. And I keep asking myself what went wrong.
Yeah.
So I didn't did anything wrong, but it just didn't implant. I mean, it did implant, but just no fetal bone, no heartbeat.
Yeah.
So many people always advise me like, oh, you should go and try second opinion. You should go and test again or something. But that's not what I want to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, but actually what I hear from my own doctor is like, he say nothing went wrong. Yeah. So I believe in him. I really nothing went wrong. Maybe just fate.
Exactly. Sometimes things are not within our control, unfortunately. And even though it might have been a good embryo, some certain things could go wrong, and that's the scary thing about IVF and fertility treatments in general.
But
That,
implant.
yeah, I know. I myself have been through a miscarriage where I lost the baby at 14 weeks and this and that, and it's devastating. But I think at a point in time, I know as women we often blame ourselves, but there comes a time where we need to think that sometimes things happen for a reason, and we really don't know, and so that's the thing. But it's very hard. I know it's very hard to get over in that sense. Um, Cheryl, what are so then after that you decided to obviously, follow Dr. Chua to Alpha IVF Fertility Center. But what made you come to that decision?
I need like a doctor that validate my thoughts, my worry, and understand where I'm coming from, like a more chillax doctor. Yeah, I am being with
I guess Dr. Chua was that chillax doctor that you're kind of talking about.
he doesn't force me to things that I don't do, but unless he thinks that it's very important that I need to, then he will really make me do it. If not, he will just give in to me and give me time. That's why I took quite long to do my IVF also.
Understand. I think that I guess in Dr. Chua you found somebody that you trusted, and trust is very important when you build a bond with a doctor. Without that trust, when things or when decisions are being made, it comes to a situation where I don't know whether I should do it, I don't want to do it, I don't know why I'm doing it, this and that. So I think conversation and trust is something that's very, very important in that sense. Now coming back to Dr. Chua, so like for example, Cheryl coming back to you at that point in time, what were some key considerations knowing that she had already failed a few more rounds after her successful round? What are some key conversations that you would normally have, or what did you have with Cheryl in that sense?
Yeah, so first you have to manage expectations. Okay, because she has gone through the whole cycle of ups and downs in IVF.
Yes.
It's great that the first cycle was successful, but subsequently she did implant but miscarried. So in her particular case, she had miscarriages, but the fact that she had a live birth before would suggest that actually there wasn't really something or innately wrong with her body. Okay, and probably the subsequent embryos that were put in, they just were genetically defective. That's why they implanted but ended up in miscarriage. Okay, so the key thing is actually just you can do tests, but a lot of them may not be, a lot of time the yield will be very low. Most of them will be normal. And in her case particularly, the key is to find a normal embryo to transfer, and then after that she should have no problems.
I see. So I guess at that point in time, the key was for her to do another stimulation cycle to retrieve more embryos.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So then, Cheryl, when it came down to that point in time where they said, okay, I think you should let's do, if you want another child, you're gonna redo this whole entire thing again. What were you thinking at that point in time? Because I guess you had gone through all that at KKH, but how was stimulations for you? The injections, everything. Did you find it tough?
For this second round, the
No.
IVF.
So so let's say do a comparison between the first and the second time round. Was there a difference?
There is a huge difference. Government and private sector, because private there isn't a service for injection. So when I was in government hospital, we can pay a package for injection. What I afraid of IVF initially was injections. I can't put myself to inject myself. So throughout all my FETER, all the journey in KKH, the nurse will inject for me, and I will go almost every day according to the schedule of my injection.
Oh, at KKH, is it?
Yes, they
Oh, wow. They would inject for you?
Yeah. So it's about, I think, 250 for one whole cycle. You have to pay 250.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know there were such services that, and that's pretty cool in that sense.
Yes, and then for the last one, I think the trigger jab, we are able to take it at A&E. So it's covered by the package.
I see.
But however, when at Alpha, because there's no one can check for me, I have to learn how to check myself. For the trigger shot, I actually managed to find a GP that actually helped me jab.
Yep.
thankfully,
in terms of comparison between, and this is where, you know, public healthcare was slightly better in that sense, where they had packages that you can buy. I didn't even know that. But interesting. And then did so I mean, because a lot of people think that after the first time round of stimulations, it gets easier the second time round. So for you, it did not get easier in that sense, or, you know, the fear factor was still there.
the fear factor of the needle still there.
Yeah, I think, you know, some people really have a fear of needles, and no matter what happens, it just, you know, doesn't go away. So I guess, so after the needles and then, you know, the OR and everything, you had your retrieval. The results that you got from your embryo retrieval, was it as per what you hoped for in that sense?
It was above my expectation.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, because it's like threefold from 3 years ago.
Wow. Dr. Chua, maybe you can explain, like, is that normal for a patient to usually get, so I guess threefold means 3 times the
And
amount of embryos, is it?
3 times more embryo, I think 15 or so, I forget how many, but I still have balanced child more frozen.
Wow, that's a lot of embryos. So, I mean, but Dr. Chua, so maybe you can explain the situation of how that worked.
Oh, I think even though most people will have a decline in egg count after 3 years, but I think thankfully for Cheryl, it didn't really happen so much. But she also wasn't in the late 30s lah. Sorry if I give away your age, but yeah, she wasn't in the late 30s, so it was kind of stable, you
Oh,
know,
that's
and um yeah, so I think that's one of the main reasons. And so her baseline egg quality was quite good and it maintained. Okay, and then um yeah, we tend to have more embryos frozen in alpha compared to when I was in KK lah. Okay, one of the things is that because being a government hospital, we tend to be a bit more conservative.
yes.
Okay, we don't want to be too aggressive with our treatment,
Yep.
because there are real complications like ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. People can get really sick from having
Yep.
too many eggs and all that.
Yep.
So we tend to be a bit more conservative. Yeah,
I see.
I think
Wow.
that was one of the other reasons that can explain that.
Yeah, understand. But I mean, it's interesting, and I'm very happy that at the end that you did get a lot better results after 3 years. And so in the end, then you did a transfer. Was it the first transfer? And then basically you are pregnant now, right?
Yes, it was the first transfer.
Wow. So how did you feel after, you know, getting that positive pregnancy, knowing that, okay, wow, I've succeeded again in that sense?
Definitely happy, and then can close shop already.
I mean, you still have a lot of embryos, right? So whether you want to go into the third or not, but yeah. So
I
at
know
least,
it will not finish, so I think this round too much, maybe it's the time that telling me that it's time to stop.
yeah.
Because every year, even if I can transfer one, it takes 12 years. By then, I'm close.
Wow, 12 kids at the end of the day. But yeah, so I mean, Dr. Chua, I think coming back to you, in terms of helping patients find a balance between realistic expectations and considering another IVF cycle, what is that balance that you would usually, you know, ask patients to kind of find?
Yeah, so I think the balance is between the need to accumulate as many eggs and embryos as you can when you are younger,
Yep.
and yet at the same time you need time to recover from a egg collection or a negative pregnancy test. And at the same time, you also have to balance against the real worry that your eggs are declining in count and quality.
Yeah.
So I think there is no magic figure lah. But I definitely is fine to rest for 2 or 3 months, go on a holiday, recharge before doing the next step. But of course, you don't want to wait too long, like maybe 6 months to a year. I think that will be a bit too long.
Yeah. When do you recommend patients to do a bit more embryo banking? You know, let's say I'm trying for my second round, trying for my second child. You know, we did a stimulations round, only got maybe 1 or 2 embryos. Would you usually ask them to, you know, go for another round of stimulations, or, you know, what are the conversations that's had at that point in time?
Yeah, I think one of the most important decision is whether how many more kids you want. Okay, so if you only just want one more, then as long as you have 1 or 2 reasonable quality embryo, then I will go ahead to transfer without having to accumulate. Okay, but if you, for example, if you want 2 more kids, then you will need to have more, because if the first embryo goes in and you're pregnant, the next time you're coming back for the egg collection will be 2-3 years later.
Yes.
And that time, definitely there will be some decline. So it really depends how many kids you want, actually.
Yeah. I think that's a very important conversation. But do you have patients who say that, I don't care, let's just transfer first, and then consider it later on and then regret it after that? So, I mean, do you have patients like that?
There are patients who transfer first, but they usually don't regret it.
Okay.
They don't regret it because as long as they are successful and then they are happy. And if they are not successful, they can come back. They don't have to wait too long before they try again.
Yeah. So I mean, it's good, but it's good that patients are advocating for themselves and making that decision based on what they kind of want as well. Because I think the biggest advocate you can be in the fertility journey is yourself, and that's why I think the doctor is important to give you the advice that he gives you. But at the end of the day, whatever you feel is best for yourself is also the decision that you make. Because I also know of ladies who have done embryo banking and have doctors telling them no, let's just do embryo banking, and they did like 6-7 rounds of embryo banking, and they only wanted one child, and they transferred one, and now they have a lot of embryos left, and they kind of don't know what to do. So I think it's something. And then now looking back, they say that maybe I shouldn't have done embryo banking. But hindsight is something that we can never control in that sense. Cheryl, from your point of view, just now I think we kind of addressed this a little bit, but how important do you think it is to find a doctor that you are fully comfortable with, while trying to do IVF?
Definitely is very important because doctor, you need to trust like what we shared just now, and then you will need to believe that you are in good hands. If you don't trust the doctor, then it's like half of the battle is gone already. Yeah. So it's better that the doctor validates your thoughts, your emotion as a whole, rather than they skylight you in a way.
Yeah.
So it's not easy to find a doctor that really can trust because
it's now looking back, there's a lot of things that maybe you would have changed previously, but at that point in time, I think circumstances as well. Circumstances. The majority of people do start their journey at public healthcare. I started my journey at public healthcare, but we learn lessons along the way, and a lot of people do succeed at public healthcare, but then there's also the majority that does not. So I think if you had succeeded fully at public healthcare, I think maybe the mindset would have been different in that sense. So I think whatever journey we go through really shapes how we end up thinking how things are. But yeah, Dr. Chua, what at any point in time would you tell a patient who has like Cheryl, you told her basically 12 months later you can try and this and that, but at any point in time would you tell a patient that your first time IVF was not so good in that sense, but I don't think you should continue? Have you ever had such a conversation?
I think that's a very, very difficult conversation, especially sort of like telling the patient that she doesn't have much hope, right? So it's
Yes.
very difficult. And there are some, unfortunately, there are some conditions that remain very, very challenging, even with IVF. Okay, and namely advanced maternal age or low egg count.
Yep.
These two, and unfortunately, they tend to come together hand in hand, right? These two. Okay, so previously, the IVF success rates were dismal for those that were more than 40. Actually, nowadays it's a bit better with the advancement in technique and lab and everything. So early 40s still have a reasonable chance.
Yeah.
But it still remains difficult to treat. So I would say those that have done a few cycles, and I mean, definitely you will at least try one cycle for these patients.
Yes.
Okay, and sometimes if one cycle is not ideal, it's okay to try at least one or two more. Okay, but those who have failed multiple cycles with only one or two eggs, and those eggs may or may not have fertilized, they may or may not have an embryo transfer, then I think they may need to have to sit down and discuss and to see at least have a endpoint. Maybe you try a few more a certain amount of cycles. If it's not successful, then explore other options.
It is definitely a very difficult conversation to have. I mean, we often see ladies who basically say that, I don't know when to stop, and my doctor has never talked to me about stopping. So, it's something that I think doctors should also find the responsibility to kind of say that, I think there should, as you said, there should be an endpoint, and we need to know where the endpoint is, because if not, a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of hope is going down the drain.
Yeah, and your life sort of comes to a standstill, right? You cannot progress with anything else. Just your whole focus is this. And one of the main aims of IVF is actually to form embryos. One of the main thing is to form, and if you manage to form good quality embryos, more than half the battle is won actually.
Yeah.
So if you have potential of doing that, you have a good number of eggs, or the quality is okay. So that will be some of the reasons to continue trying.
Yeah.
Okay, versus if you only get 1 or 2 eggs and they don't really form embryos, then it's very, very difficult.
Yeah. So, but what happens when, let's say, a couple has good embryos, but unfortunately, every time they transfer, things are not going right with the body in terms of, endometrial lining is not good, no trilaminar in a sense. But what happens in that situation?
Okay, so that is another difficult problem. So it is a whole it's a whole discussion by itself. And previously, really, people didn't even ask. I'm not sure why that happened. But one of the important things to note is that the embryo transfer is actually very important. Some women have a very curved or very difficult to navigate.
Like retroverted, anteverted.
Yeah,
I never know that word until
not everyone is just a straight, right? So and most are manageable, but there are just some that are very difficult. And that process of trying to put the embryo in smoothly is actually very, very important. And that will really affect your pregnancy rates. You can have the best embryo, but you don't put it in properly, you won't get pregnant.
Wow. Okay, but that is an interesting concept. So basically, the skill of the doctor also plays a very big part in this.
The embryo transfer technique is actually very important.
And would you say that that comes down to experience, years of experience, or basically skill in that sense?
It's a combination. You have to have experience and learn how to do it. Because it's not a straight line sometimes. Yeah. So a lot of previously we didn't really know why the embryos fail. Okay. And people were thinking, is it a problem with the body? Is it a problem with the lining, or the uterus is not accepting the embryo? Actually, the latest or the most recent research shows that actually it's always an embryo. It's mostly an embryo problem. There are certain problems with the body which you actually can do tests for and exclude. And by doing some patients just by doing PGT, they show that if you keep transferring embryos with good chromosomes, with normal chromosomes, eventually they get pregnant without even doing anything else. They do have to do extra treatment, they just kept transferring embryos and they got pregnant without, for example, steroids or something else.
Yes. All the intralipids and all that kind of stuff. So it really comes down to having a good embryo. That's basically half the battle won, as you said.
Yeah. So the current theory is actually all the embryo. It's always the embryo problem.
So then, there's always that big question: can embryo quality be improved? Or can a lab? Somebody always asks me, can going to a good lab actually improve embryo quality?
My answer is that yes. Okay, so I would say that a good lab is very important. For example, if you come to Singapore, and you do a blastocyst culture and you get day 5 embryos, compared to if you go to a country that is more lacking in medical service, and they don't even do day 5 embryos. They only grow to day 2 and day 3 simply because the lab cannot support the growth of the embryos. So I would not say that we are actually making the embryo better. We are just fulfilling the potential of the embryo by giving it the best environment to grow in the lab. Okay, so if your lab is not great, your embryo cannot form a embryo properly, and you actually don't reach the potential of the egg and the sperm. So I would say most of the time, most of the labs in Singapore, thankfully, are good standard. They can really let you form the blastocyst or the embryo that is supposed to form.
Yeah. So that's reassuring for the ladies in Singapore that at least we are in a country where technology is actually not too bad in that sense. Cheryl, was there anything that you wish people or someone had told you about going through IVF the second time round? In that sense, that did you actually think that, okay, it's going to be a breeze in that sense? And do you wish somebody had told you, or even doctor had told you that, hey, actually, I think you should be a bit more, don't not say don't be too hopeful, but also be a bit more cautious in hope. Do you wish somebody had told you something?
I wish someone told me that every cycle is different. Like, doesn't mean that the first cycle went well. The next few cycle is a golden ticket. Everyone assume that the first cycle went well. Then after that, it's very easy to get natural conceive, very easily to get 2 lines.
Yeah.
But every cycle is different, and we shall just enjoy the moment though. Yeah. And expect, of course, we must be hopeful, but not to an extent that when you are too hopeful, then you will fall.
The higher the hope, the bigger you fall.
Yes. Especially when it is implanted, then the 2-week wait is not the crucial one. The more crucial was the 2-week wait after that, waiting for the heartbeat.
Yeah, I know that is nerve-wracking. Is that I can tell you? I think I always say that, but IVF I think changes trauma in our minds. I think and Dr. Chua, I'm very happy that I mean, I'm not happy that you had to go through IVF, but I'm happy the fact that you actually understand what we mean. That I think as a doctor and as a father who has been through IVF, I think holding your wife through the IVF rounds, I mean, how did you feel in that sense? Was there something like your wife was going through the journey herself, but was there any point in time where she was also not feeling so hopeful, and then you had to kind of step in that sense?
Yeah, of course, because the very first time we were just not. Actually, looking back, it was a bit funny. Actually, our first embryo was pretty good lah. It was a really good quality one. Yet it was the one that we were the most worried about, whether or not we will get pregnant, and whether everything will be fine, whether miscarriage and everything. And my second and third embryos were actually a bit lower in quality. The second one was didn't have an A, anywhere in its scoring. And the third one was actually a day 6 embryo. So it's even like a bit lower pregnancy rate.
Yeah.
So actually we were most nervous for the first one. And for the second and third, we weren't really so nervous. We were more like, okay, probably won't work. But actually to our pleasant surprise, they all stuck. Yeah, so they all stuck, and then now I have 3 kids. So actually embryo scoring is important to give you a idea of what is the chance of pregnancy, but it's not the truth. The truth is actually you put it in whether you get pregnant. So it just gives you an idea of the pregnancy rate, but sometimes the embryo will surprise you.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I mean, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but you actually, before you were a doctor at Alpha, you actually did your IVF at Alpha, correct?
Yeah.
so I mean, as a doctor, I think you should know how to choose a place that is, that you feel is better in that sense. So and the fact that you chose the place that you're working at now, I mean, I think that gives it a bit more reassurance in that sense that you didn't choose somewhere else. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've experienced here, and then I thought that was at least decent, at least, right?
Yeah. I mean, what is one, reassurance, as a person has gone through IVF and as a doctor, what is one reassurance that you think patients should hear after coming back from a successful first round? But what is something that you feel that, let's say the patient comes to you now, what is something that you're going to say to them?
Yeah, so actually after a successful first round, it's actually quite easy. So you can just say, I mean, really their fertility is proven. The embryo can stay, and their body can carry a pregnancy to term. So, and that's not what just I say, it's really true.
Yeah.
And that reflects in the pregnancy rate for these patients. Okay, they generally tend to get pregnant more easily. Okay, compared to someone who has never gotten pregnant before.
Yeah.
Their chance is a bit higher. Okay. But again, IVF is never 100%. Okay, there's no 100% in IVF. And as I said, a lot of times it's the embryo, right? So we make so many embryos as human beings. We make so many embryos. Not all of them are normal. Some of them have genetic problems, and these end up in failed. They don't implant, or they implant and they miscarry. So some women may feel that, or some couples may feel there's something wrong with them. Actually, it's not.
Yeah.
It's just that we make so many, and some of them invariably are abnormal.
And I mean, for you to answer this, a good graded embryo can also have genetic problems, correct?
Definitely, we know because now PGT is available. Of course, PGT is not 100% accurate, and it has its own issues as well. But sometimes even the best looking embryo can be abnormal.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I think the mindset that, I implanted, I mean, especially let's say for Cheryl, what you were thinking just now when you were blaming yourself in certain ways that, I transferred a good embryo, implanted. Was it something that I did wrong? Sometimes you really don't know. Sometimes it could be just something wrong with the embryo, and it's really not something that's within our control and that we can kind of figure out at the end of the day. But if you could share one message, Cheryl, with couples, okay, doing a second time round, what would you like to tell them in that sense?
I feel that every cycle is different. We can be hopeful, but take it as a new cycle. Do whatever we should do and leave it to fate.
Yeah. I think that's good advice. I think it's very different advice coming from the doctor and coming from the patient, because I think doctors, you see a lot more, you see a lot of successes and you see a lot more hope in that sense because you know that, but for patients who, when we don't succeed, we are very linear, I guess. We only see our own journey and therefore with IVF, we're often a lot more cautious when things don't work out. And that's why we also want the people around us to also learn to be cautious in case, as Cheryl said, if you hope too high, you also drop a lot faster, a lot deeper in that sense. But yeah, so I mean, we're almost at the end of today's talk. But finally, Dr. Chua, any final words of advice, in general for couples who are thinking, I have one child, should I try for my second one? But what's your words of advice for them?
Yeah, I think I mean I like and I love children. So if you ever think that you want a second child, just go for it. So and then every embryo is different, and every child is different. So if you have more than one child, you will know their personality and everything is totally different. So yeah, so it doesn't mean that if, for example, if you have failed before with the first embryo, second embryo will definitely be not successful. In fact, there is something called cumulative pregnancy or cumulative live birth in IVF, where the more embryos you transfer, the more likely you're going to get pregnant. Okay, so it sounds obvious, right? Isn't it? But it's actually true.
It sounds
Very
logical.
obvious, but
It sounds
it's actually
logical.
true. And statistically speaking, eventually, majority of patients do succeed. May not necessarily be the first time, but eventually people do succeed.
Yeah. I think, it's today's conversation is not long, but I think it's important to have because I think we often overlook IVF the second time round. We often only talk about IVF the first time round, the difficulties you go through the first time. But we also don't see the difficulties the second time round, or we don't see how things can be different. So I think today's conversation was very important in that sense. And it's good to have a doctor's point of view and a patient's point of view, to give us an idea of how things are thought very differently from different people in that sense. And as I said, I love the fact that Dr. Chua comes from his point of view that he is an IVF dad. We don't really hear a lot from the IVF dad point of view, but for someone who's gone through it and also helping people, I think that's very important. We have one question coming in. Is a fresh and frozen transfer, I guess, does a fresh and frozen transfer affect the success? Maybe we can answer that before we end today's talk.
Yeah, so there's always this question, and actually there are studies that actually really answer this question. Okay, so a fresh cycle tends to have a bit lower success rate than a frozen, simply because in a fresh cycle there are so many hormones that are pumped in the body, and it's really not ideal, or it's not a natural environment to get pregnant, and that translates to really lower pregnancy rates. Okay, compared to a frozen where you let the hormones wash out of the body, and then you replace it in an environment where it's more natural. The only caveat to that is that the only problem is that sometimes when you freeze and you thaw the embryos, they may not survive. But nowadays the labs are really good. The survival rate is really good. So that it's more of a problem last time. Nowadays the freeze and thaw survival is like 90% can be 99 to 100%.
Yeah. I know Alpha's one is very high, about 99%, I think, if I'm not right. Wrong, right?
It's about more than 99.9%. 99%, yeah.
So I don't think it's something that we should be worrying about in Singapore here. Because I think whenever anybody talks about it, will my thaw survive, or will my embryos survive a thaw. But I think given that the rates are very good, I think it's not something that you should worry too much about. But I think it's a conversation that you should have with your doctor to kind of say that, you know, what is more suitable for you. Because are there also situations when let's say, you know, an embryo that is not growing so well, would you consider doing a fresh transfer in that sense instead of letting it, you know, instead of freezing it?
Yeah, sometimes if the embryo really doesn't look so good, and then the patient may choose to just transfer, because sometimes we may not even the lab may advise the patient to maybe don't even freeze the embryo.
Yeah.
So instead of just letting it be, sometimes we will just transfer it in. Okay.
And hope that nature takes its course and something happens. One more follow-up question. How long is the period between OPU and a frozen transfer usually?
Yeah. So after OPU, within 2 weeks, the menses will come. Okay, and then your preparation for the frozen transfer can start as early as that menses. Okay, so that's the earliest you can start.
But usually will you recommend, I mean, because just now you said, you know, wash out the hormones and wash out all the drugs that's in there. How long would you usually advise patients to wait before a next transfer? Very logically speaking.
Yeah, actually the next menses is fine already.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
so
actually
the
quite
body
fast.
recovers very fast. So there is actually no difference whether you do it that very menses or you wait 2 months or something, you know, there's no difference.
I think this is a good question because I think, you know, some people think that, oh, you know, if I freeze it, I got to wait very long. And, you know, when we're trying for a child, we want things fast. We want the baby now, you know, instead of, you know, 9 months later. But yeah, so it's good to know that actually you just have to wait one cycle and you can kind of just do it the next cycle.
Yeah, the very next menses you can start with.
Yeah. So, okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Chua, and thank you, Cheryl, you know, for sharing your story. I think it's a very important sharing, as I said just now. I mean, if there's one thing that you take away from today's conversation is that IVF is unpredictable. You know, finding a good doctor, finding a good center is very important. But I think your own emotions and you are your biggest advocate. And knowing what to do. That's why talks like this is so important because by listening to talks like this, we hope that you gain a bit more clarity. You know, we can get questions answered and it gives you a bit more direction of kind of what to do next. And therefore, very important conversation. So thank you, Dr. Chua, and thank you, Cheryl, for your time. Really appreciate it. Cheryl, you know, Cheryl's almost due, so we really wish you a very successful delivery. You know, we cannot wait to see your baby. And Dr. Chua is the one that's delivering it. So please, you know, good job to both of you. We look forward to seeing the baby soon. So thank you.
Her first child, Emmanuel, is really, really cute. So
I know,
expect the daughter to be the same or even cuter.
I know, definitely. I think, you know, I think babies are a blessing, kids are a blessing. And so we hope that everybody watching it will get your blessing soon. But, you know, join us. We hope that you can join us the next series. We will bring more conversations like this. If there are topics and, you know, people that you'd like us to talk to, please let us know. And, you know, more conversations with Dr. Chua. If you would like to see Dr. Chua, he's at Alpha IVF Center. Dr. Chua, would you like to share where Alpha is before we end?
Alpha IVF Center is located in Royal Square at Novena. Okay, so it's a
it's a very nice center. It's one of the prettiest centers, you know, that I've been to. So
thank you so much.
Yeah,
so we have a really nice recovery area.
You do. You have one of the nicest looking ones for sure.
Yeah, so once you exit the lift at the level 12, you will see the center. It's just there. It's
like a hotel at the end. Right, Cheryl? Very, very big difference, right? Very.
I don't know, but Emmanuel love it.
And very nice. It doesn't feel like a very medical center. I think that's the main thing, and that's not what you want to feel. Anyway, thank you, everybody. We hope that you have enjoyed today's conversation, and we will see you guys soon. So thank you. Good night, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Bye.